Hi and welcome to Dialogue and welcome to Pretoria, South Africa. At the defining moment of China's practical cooperation with Africa, I'm honored to interview His Excellency Mr. Songtian, the Chinese ambassador to South Africa, to address issues concerning FOCAC, the Belt and Road Initiative, and industrialization in Africa. But mutually, as the biggest trading partner, particularly with the end of the official ties with Taiwan, can the white people here understand the new realities and the road of China's development? How does China understand the proposed land reform in South Africa? Will digital technology help the emerging African middle class enjoy dividends of globalization? To discuss these issues and more, I'm very happy to talk to His Excellency Ambassador Songtian in South Africa.
In 1999, the fate of Songtian became linked to that of Africa. Since then, he has served successively as counselor at the Chinese Embassy in Zambia and ambassador to Liberia, Malawi and South Africa. In 2005, shortly after taking office as ambassador to Liberia, he was invited by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to give a speech on China relations and China-Africa cooperation in Liberia. After listening to his speech, Liberian MPs signed a motion to adhere to the One China principle.
29个党派一致通过了这个决议，也是第一次在中华人民共和国外交史上由一个主权国家对一个中国法进行立法。
On May 23, 2008, as the first Chinese ambassador to Malawi, Songtian submitted credentials to the president of the country, and they had a cordial talk about developing the relationship between both countries and the promotion of cooperation in various fields. In 2014, he became director of the Department of African Affairs of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Secretary-General of the Follow-up Committee of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, and has played an increasingly important role in the promotion of Sino-African cooperation in all areas. In 2015, he participated in the organization of the China-Africa Cooperation Forum Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa, the first of its kind in Africa. During the forum, Chinese President Xi Jinping moved to elevate Sino-African relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership and said that in the following 3 years, China was ready to make available a $60 billion fund to support 10 major projects of cooperation with Africa. In August 2017, Songtian was appointed as the ambassador to South Africa.
Welcome to Dialogue, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
A few weeks ago, President Xi Jinping came over to attend the BRICS Summit. What do you think were the breakthrough results of the summit between China and the BRICS economies?
I think His Excellency President Xi Jinping of China came here for the third state visit to South Africa and attend the BRICS 10th Summit in Joburg. He stayed here for almost 5 days. And I think this is a very, very successful and another historical visit. That first he have the, I think this is most important also for South Africa new president. When he swear in as a new president of South Africa, President Ramaphosa, this is also the first state visit of the major country in the world to come here. So His Excellency President Ramaphosa spent a whole day, 1 day ahead of the BRICS Summit to accompany and to open the whole day for the state visit of President Xi Jinping. And that is the only state visit during the BRICS Summit time at this moment, because more than 20 head of state or head of government come here to join the summit. So I think this is very significant.
This is indeed a landmark front-page story for South Africa and for our bilateral relationship.
Yeah.
Now, this year witnesses the 20th anniversary of the bilateral relationship. I mean, 20 years ago, South Africa established official ties, giving China the official recognition. 20 years on, what do you think of the improvement of our relationship?
Our relationship already leapfrogged from ordinary bilateral relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Now that we work together not only in politics, economic, but comprehensively, including security, international coordination, people-to-people interaction. I think now the relationship between us already become very comprehensive. And also this relationship is very visible and tangible to our people. Now China has remained the largest trading partner in 9 consecutive years. between the trade between China and South Africa as a largest trading partner with South Africa. And of course, we also have become one of the most important sources of investment and tourists from China to this country. So up to now, you can imagine the direct investment from China to this country, according to my calculation, is come to more than 25 billion US dollar. So our relationship is not so old compared to other African countries, but it goes so fast.
A major newspaper in Singapore said recently in editorial, what is meaningful about the relationship between Africa, the dynamic continent, and China is the 3,000 projects that we invest, and also $60 billion that President Xi Jinping promised to invest, according to the 10-point proposal to assist Africa with this massive industrialization. Now, what do these mega projects mean through FOCAC, which is to take place in early September?
As you know, we always call African continent, African people are the friend, good partner, good brother of China. So when everybody knows, this continent is still up to now. When we get into join into the 21st century, this country is still left behind, especially in the economics. So a lot of people living under poverty. So when this continent living under poverty suffer from the conflict, I think it's not serve our fundamental interest, because also against our culture. We call this continent as our good friend and brothers. As our brothers, we have to help each other, understand each other, and share each other. So now is the good time for us. In the 1960s, 70, 80, China is not had that capacity to have this continent to go ahead to achieve the durable peace and sustainable development. But now, China, we up to 40 years economic reform and economic development. So now we have the capacity and commitment to have this continent for durable peace and sustainable development. So we try our best. Our President Xi Jinping give us the new ideas while in conducting the cooperation and relations with African. We have to follow the common values of not only friendship, justice, and shared interests. The core meaning or the essence of his idea is to put China's development together with African development, combined together to achieve the win-win cooperation for common development.
I'm afraid profound changes have taken place in South Africa since the end of apartheid in 1994. On the one hand, we enjoy the glow of Nelson Mandela's legacy for national reconciliation, but not necessarily, I'm afraid, for economic governance. Since, look at the domestic politics in South Africa, ANC is accused of having the corrupt problems, and you have the tribal culture. The whites protect their land. Newly elected President Ramaphosa vows to have a kind of a land reform. Now, given the prejudice that some of the whites may still have about China, the new image of China, how difficult is it to advance the relationship, to promote the mutual understanding? I believe this is the major mission for the Chinese special envoy, the ambassador for you in this country.
I think it's a very important point. This country, in 10 years ago, 20 years, 15 years ago, in economic development, they are quite advanced. Their economic foundation, condition, sometimes more better in China. And their per capita GDP, of course, more better in China. But I'm sorry to say that the mutual understanding we must be improved or strengthened, that they enjoy they like to, the idea, unfortunately to say at this moment, the world has gone so far, especially China together with the emerging power, emerging economy in the world, has gone so far. But people in this country or in the world, that to remain their old mentality and old concept, to think about China. And what they learn something about China is from the media.
Excuse me, are you saying that some of the elites in the South African government have been influenced heavily by Western media and the bias that is implied in their extensive media coverage about China? They are still the hostage of the Western stereotyped perceptions about China?
Now, this is very unfortunate to say. The Western media Now, how can we say the challenge to us for China and African to deepen our cooperation? The main obstacle, in my view, is mutual understanding. Because a lot of people know each other from China and African, especially from South Africa, know each other through the Western media. The Western media in a way is hard for us to expect them to say anything true or natural. So they all give us some wrong and old perspective on old idea, old story. So the people here in this continent, especially this country, the white people, something like that, they sometimes have maintained their own mentality and old idea about China. So this is why some days before there's one very important banker, the CEO of the bank, very famous bank. I asked him whether or not have you been to China? He said, no, I never.
He's never been to China.
He's never been to China. I said, I'm sorry, you know nothing about the world.
You know, Peter Navarro, major economic advisor to President Donald Trump, has never been to China. But he's the author of Death by China. I mean, he went to extremes to portray China as a villain.
This is now the world situation. It suffered a lot from the very complicated situation because the people maintain as it was. But the world has gone so far, especially in China. So I challenged that gentleman. I said, my God, you're the banker, very important CEO of the bank in the world. But you've never been to China, that means you know nothing about the world nowadays. So we have to go there to have a look. China is not perfect.
Report. Homework.
Seeing is believing. So we are proud of China and my party, my country, and our people. Because why? We benefit from opening. We're humble to learn from all over the world. Whatever good, let them come to China to practice. Of course, we have capacity to balance the world. So we send our children, our officials out of China to learn from the world.
Your Excellency, we are looking at the roadmap of the development in the respective economies, South Africa and China. Many are wondering if the role of development or model of China, quote unquote, could be copied elsewhere in developing countries. China would always be very cautious as to say, look, China is very unique. You cannot easily copy our example. Now, what did you say to the African friends here?
We never say China is a model, but it's a choice. Perhaps you can have another choice. So why China? This is why more and more African people understand. They are thinking about how China is such a huge country with huge size of the population, but under under leadership of Communist Party of China, in the system of socialism with Chinese characteristic. And within such a short time, we achieved so much. So now more and more people rush to China to learn how and what. So now I'm very happy to see, now they get the idea. China, most important, we uphold the system called socialism with Chinese characteristic. That means the system in China must be based on our own culture, own condition.
Mr. Ambassador, the media in South Africa may point out, look, you don't have a powerful trade union. Therefore, the issue of labor rights could come across as a major concern for those who invest in China, who look at the future of China. Now, they have a powerful trade union, the Communist Party in the parliament and the ANC. The coalition government seems to be, they have their own agenda instead of the 2063 agenda of the whole continent. But what is the agenda of South Africa and above all, the ability to execute the agenda since the parliament is so divided?
I think sometimes some people misunderstanding or know very little about China. We have the trade union, how to protect our people's their interest. But of course, we also have to work together with the investor and employer to make sure their business is sustainable. Because if their business is not sustainable...
Are you saying full employment of the workers should first and foremost be the top concern of the Chinese government?
Yeah.
What about the unemployment rate in South Africa at this moment?
At this moment, is in the country, they have the unemployment rate has come to more than 27 and almost come to 30%. And for the youth, there's more than 50% of unemployment.
That's appallingly high for the government, the newly elected government.
So this is, I like to also work very closely with the trade union. We have to let them understand, first, you need to attract the investor to come. and keep them well so that they can create more business, create more jobs. And then, of course, we would like to challenge the employer and also the investor, either from China or from the world, to come here. Of course, they have to care about the welfare, the interests of the employee. I think this is how to balance this relationship, bring them in harmony. To see the sustainable development by both sides is a big challenge.
President Donald Trump won the campaign on the platform of populism and trade protectionism because he was largely supported by white deplorables, or white losers, in other words, in Midwestern state of Wisconsin, for example. Now, let's look at South Africa. The trade union, or ANC, to be more precise, promised to return land to the African blacks. Now, that has raised serious concerns and serious prospects about the economic dynamics of this country with the end of apartheid in the early 1990s. What do you think of the impact of the proposed land reform? Will that follow the suit of Zimbabwe to a large degree? Because this has become a front-page story, headline-making concern for all those who follow the political process in South Africa.
Land is the corporation resources to ensure the people will benefit from the land. But the land issue in this country particular is very complicated because up to now, I have to say, I have to recognize, I'm not very in detail. But I'm very confident that President Ramaphosa, for the land issue, reform issue, he has a lot of preconditions. The land the reform must conducive to the production, job creation, and food security. That is precondition. That means they will not follow the land issue like the neighboring country, Zimbabwe. I don't think he will follow the old path because that is now it's right for the black people, President Mugabe, to took the land occupied by some white people. But how to handle where the land into operation, full operation, is another question. To took the land to distribute to the owner of the nation is not argued. We have no.
It's non-negotiable. Cannot be negotiated.
But how can we get the land and manage where and put into full operation? This is another question.
Probably Chinese government and authorities may advise our African friends in this country about how to do the land reform, since we took power in 1949 based on the successful land reform. And in the late 1970s, almost 40 years ago, this year witnessed the 40th anniversary of China's opening, was also very much based on reform in agricultural areas in the countryside. So do you think you can give them some Chinese suggestions? But I'm wondering whether they are applicable here.
Exactly. Chinese culture, sometimes the people is quite unique. The other people do not understand. We are very smart, we are very wise. We have the reform. Not only
we also made serious mistakes during the decade of chaos.
Yeah, but of course, the step by step, we also get a lesson, but we improve it. But the most important is, especially under the leadership of Deng Xiaoping, he had the rural reform, but to put in revitalize the land production and encourage more people to develop the land to benefit their country, to fight against poverty. But here, the land issue exactly is very complicated, but I'm very sure they will not follow the old path, but they are now they also read that issue. They are about to go to China's land. We have to share the idea how to manage the land properly to benefit the people and the investor or the owner of the land.
At this defining moment of the 40th anniversary of China's opening up and reform, particularly the 20th anniversary of the bilateral relationship, it is indeed very important for the two sides, Africans and Chinese, to not only cherish the brotherhood, but also what we have learned from our mistakes. Stay with us, we'll be right back after the short break. Welcome back, Mr. Ambassador. Now let's look at the 2063 agenda of the African Union. Do you see any collision, cooperation, or conflicts between their agenda and the agenda of the Chinese government in building the One Belt, One Road initiative here?
The main purpose or objective of the 2016 is for industrialization and modernization in the continent. For the Belt and Road, they are built together, follow the principle of planning together, build together, and share together for what? For win-win cooperation for common development. I think the main purpose of the two initiatives or the plan are the same. And we also share the concept and the principle. So I think now is the time for China to synergize the national development strategy under the initiative of One Belt, One Road.
Look, Mr. Ambassador, both the World Bank and the IMF provide the African continent with the big loans, but they accuse China of trying to build debt traps. Look at what happened in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Due to billions of dollars of debt of the Sri Lankan government, they leased Hambantota for 99 years to the Chinese authorities, causing an uproar in debates in the West media. Dr. Mahathir, the newly elected leader of Malaysia, decided to cancel a mega railway project in near the eastern coastline of that country. In both cases, the Western observers say, hey, this is a Chinese conspiracy of seeking to build the debt trap so that those host countries would be at the mercy of the Chinese whims and the Chinese donor government. So what do you think of their accusations?
The accusation from the West, because they were then also dominated by the West, they never say something true. Let me tell you that the loan in this continent now is a lot, exactly. But you can, the composition of the loan in this continent now, you can 38% of the loan in the continent at this moment from the commercial bank. 36 of the loan come from the World Bank and IMF. Only 26% of the loan in the continent from all the international countries, the governments, from different countries. That means in China, that's a small part of that. In the year 2000, we do not have the loan in this continent. The total investment from China to this continent, less than $1 billion. But I was a DG for the African Affairs Department. So what the for any financial support or input from China to this continent, they have to follow a very strict procedure. In China, why these countries, some countries benefit more, some countries benefit less? Because if some countries do not get ready the project plus feasibility study, no feasibility study, no project, and no financial support from China. The feasibility study have to ensure Chinese government and bank the project must be sustainable and profitable. But now, of course, and also my government, my president and our premier also guide us in conducting the cooperation with this continent. We have to follow 5 new concepts of cooperation. One is common development. That means this is not from one country, from one side to another side by grant, but benefit both sides. The second is incentive cooperation concept. That means we have to build the infrastructure for what? To drive the industry development and encourage the people to go there for the investment, for the industry development. It's the industry development to sustain the infrastructure. That is, my concern is the money the law go for what? For the national consumption spending by the government or for the project. The third concept, I think, is the green development concept. We will not come here to bring the air pollution or water pollution come to this country.
We want to turn the continent into an environmentally friendly.
Very friendly. This is our principle and
to
concept.
Encourage a low carbon development.
Yeah. And also here, not the green, that is green development concept. And the fourth is the secure. That means we come here, we can make sure the people and the people secure. We cannot come here to pay the losses. And the last is opening development concept, because this continent belongs to the continent, but they are very important part of the international community. Especially those in developed countries, they have the obligation, they owe this continent, they have to pay more attention and bring more money to invest in this continent especially in the infrastructure development. So my concern is, those people now they have no intention, no money, or less and less intention of money come to this continent, but they also worry about China to give more money to this continent. So they will have to give us the excuse or complain about China, give us the excuse or smell China by increasing the debt crisis in the continent. I'd like to let them understand. The money from bank, not from the government. The bank, if we come here to create the debt crisis, we create the problem to ourselves. The bank of China will be closed and face the bankruptcy.
No bankers in China will be that stupid to
because
enjoy
we
no
cannot
return
create
of
the trouble
investment.
to them. If we create the debt crisis to them, we create the debt trouble to ourselves. So that is, let them free relax. The China government and people, we are smart enough. We know how to help them to go ahead step by step. Let them go to Ethiopia. We help them to build the railway. Of course, there's a lot of input there. To build a railway to drive the industry development. But now we are about to help them to build an economic corridor by industry park. Is to attract the investors to be there and to create jobs, generate the national revenue, to sustain the railway, to strengthen the capacity, to pay the bank back.
I hope our Western friends may draw inspirations from the vigor and dynamics of your presentation, which is very articulate about the Chinese wisdom, sophistication, and policy options in this dynamic continent. The last issue I want to raise with you is digital technology. When we look at the implications of the industrialization, many African friends here in this country say we might as well catch up more quickly with the help of Chinese electronic giants. I mean the BAT, Baidu, Tencent, Alibaba. Over the course of 20 years since our normalization of the bilateral relationship, there is a growing army of the middle class consumers. They use mobile phones, the internet. That's the sizable population of the internet users. But do you think it is in this particular area South Africa will follow suit, drawing inspirations from China in having what we call 弯道超车, the corner overtaking? What does that mean for the future?
This is a very good question. Some days before, Mr. Jack Ma, he came here
Jack Ma
came here and he's very welcomed by all the circle, the people from all the areas, and especially the youth, give him a very warm welcome. And also now, as you know, I'm very proud of our country. We tailor it in a new economic development model, like the data economic, digital economic, and the share economy. I'm proud of that. We tailor it in the world. This is why in the past few years, especially the past 5 years, we live for the economic development again and again, and maintain such a good situation there. So now this continent, this is we worry. That is digitalization cooperation, I think in the future is one of our priority. Now in this continent, they have more than 700 people have the mobile phone user.
What's the number?
700 million.
700
more than 7 million
in
people.
Africa.
In Africa, they have this mobile phone at least. And now, South Africa is more than that. The percentage of the population use the cell phone. This country, in the society, they are quite advanced. The per capita GDP is not low. So I think this country, the digital cooperation in South Africa, we are very interested. And this president, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, is very interested to learn from China. This is why he's about to go to China for a state visit. And after the state visit, he will go straight to Shenzhen, to see Huawei, and to Hangzhou to see Jack Ma, to learn the digital economic and the smart city.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. By the end of the day, Africans and the Chinese would ask the same question, whether our formidable presence here would help local governments establish their own independent development policy, self-reliance policy and strategies. That is perhaps the essence of the 10-point proposal the Chinese government raises in helping the development of Africa. Thank you for being with us. With that, we conclude this dynamic discussion with Ambassador Lin Songtian, the Chinese ambassador to South Africa. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.